Hello and welcome to the Balls It Up podcast. It's been a while since we did the last episode again. We've had a few things going on, like moving back into uni for this upcoming year. But here we are with another episode of the podcast, and we're going to start off with F1. We've had 3 Grand Prix since we were last on the podcast, and the first of them was Monza, which was a very interesting race to say the least, probably the best race of the season. Some big news going into this race was that we had the engine mode changes. The FIA basically said you're not allowed to change your engine mode between qualifying and the race. So we always had like the bigger teams go into like that extra mode in the engine to get some more pace out of the car, but it's just all evened out now. And while nothing's changed from Mercedes' perspective because they've just got the best car on the grid by a mile, it actually hit Williams very hard.
Yeah, it did, didn't it?
George Russell was consistently getting out of Q2 for quite a while, and at Monza he was pretty much back of the grid with Latifi again, and Williams took a massive step back, you know. They just started to get out of Q2 and now they're right back to the back of the grid again. We had a lot of problems in Monza qualifying actually, with a lot of people getting their times deleted around Parabolica. The cars they just couldn't stay in the line, just coming around that corner, and we had loads. We had Leclerc, Magnussen, Gasly, Albon and Stroll also had some problems. Go into the Mercedes car again, when you look at their laps, everyone was going off track, past the white lines Mercedes. They weren't even anywhere close to going off the track, which is how ridiculous that car is. But the race, so there was a couple of talking points for the start, which was obviously Bottas's horrific start. He went all the way down to 6th place.
Oh yeah, that was terrible.
Sainz and Norris actually were in 2nd and 3rd. Albon went down to 15th after he went off track because he hit Gasly. And Albon actually ended up getting a 5-second time penalty for not leaving enough room. But the first big thing that happened was Vettel's brakes failing.
Yeah.
Just on lap 6. I mean, his brakes literally exploded and he went straight through the runoff area, didn't even bother with the chicane.
No.
And I thought he just made a mistake. That's what it looked like on
Yeah, it did, didn't it?
on TV. It looked like he just made a mistake and went through the runoff area, because you do see cars do that occasionally, but then he just stopped. But yeah, he came back and his brakes failed, and somehow it actually got worse for Ferrari because in qualifying it was actually the first time since 1984 that Ferrari haven't qualified 10th or above.
Oh.
Well, Vettel got knocked out in Q1 and Leclerc out in Q2.
That's terrible.
Yeah. We saw the Mercedes downfall in this race with Bottas early on, because it's been the same for at least the last year or two now. The Mercedes really struggles when it's behind another car.
Yeah.
I think it's more in part to the setup. Obviously, Mercedes set their car up to be at the front and not deal with traffic, and they don't expect to be in 6th and trying to get past people. And Bottas really struggled. He had absolutely nothing to show in this race. That wasn't the main talking point, as Magnussen pulls over as he had some sort of issue, and he pulled over right in front of the pit entry.
Yeah.
So safety car comes out, and Hamilton decides to pit, as you would during the safety car.
Yeah, makes sense.
But the difference in this one was the pit lane was closed.
Yeah.
And now this is something that I've definitely not seen before, and
No.
it's a very rare occurrence to happen.
Yeah.
But you can see from Hamilton's perspective, there were the boards to the side of the track with X's, which basically meant the pit lane is closed. He could clearly see them, and the team definitely should have known.
Yeah, they should have known.
So he came in, and so did Giovinazzi actually, a lap or two later, which is even crazier.
Yeah.
And they both got a stop and go penalty. That basically meant Hamilton went to last place.
Yeah.
Because obviously he'd already pitted.
It wasn't good.
So that means when the race actually started, because he can't serve it under the safety car.
No. No.
So the race starts, and then he has to go in and take it.
I will say though, in Hamilton's defence, I didn't think it was actually that clear because it wasn't actually on the side of the pit lane.
Yeah, I did think that, like, there should have been, like, a board, like, right on the pit lane saying pit lane closed. Because, I mean, the boxes to the side of the track were very small, but that's something you got to know.
Yeah.
It's a mistake and he deserved the penalty for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the safety car went in and then we got a red flag.
Yep.
Which meant that obviously the race was stopped because the barrier had to be repaired because Leclerc decided to go straight into it. And yeah, like I said, it was the most exciting race for a while, especially coming off Spain and Belgium, which were quite boring. There wasn't a lot of action at all. And yeah, Gasly and Raikkonen were second and third. I mean, Raikkonen being third, you would almost think he was in the Ferrari car again. But he actually ended up dropping way back, unfortunately, for him. That Alfa Romeo just doesn't have the pace. Stroll actually messed up his chance for first after a poor restart. Hamilton was obviously last. Verstappen was nowhere. He couldn't take advantage of the Mercedes guys out of position. And then Verstappen pit and retired with engine problems. So that was even more of a mess.
I mean, he could have had a chance to really start to challenge them again in the standings, but it just wasn't his day either. Definitely,
he just came into his own problems at the wrong time. Hamilton did actually get through the grid decently. It was a lot better than Bottas, at least. I mean, Bottas struggled to overtake anyone.
Yeah.
Hamilton actually did manage to get up into 7th place, which was probably the best he could possibly get, and he got the fastest lap, which gives him an extra point.
Because, I mean, we weren't even sure if he was going to get amongst the points at one stage.
But yeah, the Mercedes car, it doesn't have the best straight line speed, which we saw. Because, I mean, it's the Renaults and the racing points that you see in qualifying. They set, like, the fastest first sectors, and but the Mercedes car is just the best overall package. And when the Mercedes car does get into problems in traffic, that's, like, the only way you can stop them, really. Yeah, the biggest talking point from this race was the podium.
Yeah.
Pierre Gasly won the race in the AlphaTauri, which means an Italian team actually won the Italian Grand Prix.
Yeah.
Because AlphaTauri is actually an Italian team. It just wasn't the Italian team you would expect at Monza. Sainz came second and Stroll ended up coming third. Bottas, like I said, struggled. He came just fifth, and yeah, what a race. And this actually brought up a pretty good talking point, which, I mean, when I first heard about it, I was completely against, but it's the reverse grid.
Yeah.
So, obviously, like, championship leader, so Hamilton would basically start from the back of the grid every race.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think after what we've seen this race,
I think it would...
Why not?
Yeah, because, I mean, like you said, some of the races can be pretty boring. Like.
Yeah, and this would make everything much more interesting.
It would totally mix it up.
Yeah, I don't see why not.
No.
Like, they could even try it for a year or two, and if it doesn't work, go back to what works.
Exactly.
But yeah, after this race, I'm definitely more for it than I was before.
Yeah.
Moving on to the second Italian Grand Prix at Mugello, the Ferrari test track, which we've never come to in F1 before. So it was great to see a brand new track, and we've got that quite a lot this year. We've got a lot of new tracks, which is definitely good to keep it fresh.
Yeah, I quite like it.
And talking point in qualifying was Pierre Gasly. He wins the Monza Grand Prix, and he goes out in Q1 at Mugello. At Mugello, Raikkonen was actually faster than Vettel in qualifying, which is absolutely hilarious in itself. Yeah, Hamilton got pole, but Verstappen was actually very close to the Mercs, and Leclerc again dragging that Ferrari up to fifth, showing that they need to get him a good car.
Definitely.
I just we know how good he is from last year, and it's just such a shame to see him qualifying in like 13th place, and
he deserves better. Maybe
finishing just about in the points for how good of a driver he is.
Yeah.
And yeah, they need to get him a good car, because I don't see him ever leaving Ferrari.
Do you not?
It's hard to see him leaving. I don't know who he would go to, but yeah, next year, obviously, regulations don't change until the year after next, so it doesn't look good for Ferrari for next year. But 2022, they got to get back.
Could be Leclerc's year in 2022.
Verstappen gave his mechanics another scare in the race, as before the race even started, they were working on his car. Unfortunately, it didn't actually work out, and he had an awful start because he had no power. Bottas blitzed the start. Hamilton did not get a good start at all, and he got into first. And like I said, Verstappen, if he didn't have that engine problem, he would have got into second ahead of Hamilton because he actually got a better start than Hamilton, but because he had no acceleration, Hamilton managed to keep it in second. And that was the thing with Mugello. A lot of slipstream, and there was nothing Hamilton could really do, especially after getting a bad start. We had a massive crash on the first lap. Verstappen was in the gravel and he was out. He couldn't do anything. He was literally beached. Gasly went with him after hitting Kimi Räikkönen, I believe. He was out on the first lap again after winning the last race. Sainz actually spun and Vettel couldn't do anything to avoid him and broke his front wing. Grosjean also went into the gravel, and I don't know how he managed to get out, but he went into the gravel with Verstappen and Gasly. Leclerc benefited greatly from that as he got into third. There were 6 safety car laps. After the safety car came in, it came straight back out because the midfield cars decided to start racing before Bottas decided to. It was an absolute mess. Bottas decided to leave it till the absolute last second possible to go, because obviously after the safety car gets in, he decides when to go.
Yeah.
And obviously he has to do it before the race finish line, because it's a massive long straight and they were going so slow. And I mean, I think the reason why the midfield cars thought they were going is because there's green lights above the track saying that the race is back on, basically. But Bottas didn't want to give Hamilton any slipstream. So Sainz, Magnussen and Giovinazzi got into a huge crash because everyone started racing, then they decided to brake and it was already too late. Giovinazzi's car actually went on its side for a second, which must have been very scary for him. Latifi ended up going out too after picking up some damage, but that was actually, that caused another red flag, which was the second weekend in a row. And this is after not seeing a red flag in quite a while.
Yeah.
We got 2 in 2 weekends. So after the red flag, we got underway again, and this time Hamilton got Bottas. The same way as Bottas got Hamilton, it's just the slipstream again. Russell and Raikkonen were actually fighting over 10th place at one point, and these are 2 drivers that before this race hadn't had any points during the whole season. And Raikkonen actually did manage to go on and pick up his first point of the season. Fortunately for Russell, we had a bad start after the second safety car. He just couldn't pick up the points. He was running the points for ages as well, which is the horrible thing.
Yeah, it's taken away at the last minute.
Leclerc was defending well, but that Ferrari car, he had no chance.
Yeah.
He lost 3 places in 3 laps, and then Perez came past him. Leclerc then eventually came in to end the misery. And like I said, Russell had raced in the points for more laps in this one race than he had in his entire career, and he actually looked comfortable in 9th.
Yeah.
Raikkonen had a 13-second pit stop because the guy who jacks the car up from the back thought the tyre wasn't on.
Oh, God.
But the tyre was on, so he just stood there with the car still up. I just don't know what the hell he was doing. From this point, Bottas was dropping back from Hamilton, and he actually said that he wanted to do an opposite strategy to Lewis.
Yeah.
So if he comes in, if Lewis came in, he wanted to go on the opposite tyre to him, basically.
I mean, I guess it makes sense, really.
But the problem was, Bottas came in first.
Oh.
So what does Hamilton do?
He's like,
Bottas goes on the hards, and Hamilton's just like, you know what, I'll come in for hards. Just to cover him off. And You know, it's all good asking for a different strategy, but when you come in first, you don't really get to decide.
You kind of ruin that.
Because it's not like they can tell Hamilton, oh no, Bottas wanted a different strategy, so you're not allowed to do that.
Yeah.
There's nothing you could do.
No.
But I'm not really surprised because Mercedes are not going to risk the 1-2.
Yeah, they're
just
not going
so
to risk
Bottas can fight Hamilton.
Exactly.
I mean, that is unfortunate for the racing, but, you know, it makes sense for them. They don't care who's 1-2, whether it's Bottas or Hamilton. Then we got a second red flag after Stroll lost his car and went into the barrier. He had a massive crash. And at this point, I thought Hamilton was pretty much screwed.
Yeah.
Because, like I said, the last 2 starts we had in this race was Bottas getting Hamilton from second.
Yeah.
And then Hamilton getting Bottas from second. So I thought Bottas was going to win this race.
Yeah.
But actually, when the start happened, Ricciardo got a hugely great start, which actually put Bottas behind him and allowed Hamilton to get away. So Hamilton actually owes this race hugely to Ricciardo.
Yeah.
No, I mean, Bottas eventually ended up getting him back, and then Albon actually stole the podium from Ricciardo and saved the Renault team boss from getting a tattoo of Ricciardo. Because they have like a little deal where if Ricciardo gets on the podium, he gets a tattoo. So, yeah, and after this restart, Russell missed out on his first points because he had a bad restart. And Ferrari actually ended up getting a double points finish, which was actually really good for them, considering what everyone thought was going to happen, which was really bad. So, yeah, going into Sochi, we had Hamilton actually, if he won Sochi, he would have tied Michael Schumacher's record for the most race wins in F1 history. We'll get onto that in a little bit. So qualifying, Vettel spun and hit the wall, which brought out a red flag. And this put Hamilton in quite a situation.
Yeah.
Because he had not set a lap time yet, because he got his first lap time deleted. And there was not much time to get a lap in.
There was a lot of pressure on that.
A lap around Sochi is about 1 minute 32, I think, was the pole position at that point. And there was about 2 minutes 15 left.
Yeah.
And we know how slow the F1 cars like to go on their outlap. I think it was Gasly who actually, out of the pit lane, he actually slowed everyone down.
Yeah.
Which put Hamilton in even more of a bad position. And Hamilton actually had to go on softs, whereas Bottas and Verstappen qualified on mediums.
Yeah.
Which is the big turning point in the race, I think. Yeah, Hamilton, he actually made a mistake as well and went off the track, so that cost him even more time, and he went to the back of the grid, and he crossed the line with about, I think there was less than a second left.
Yeah, it was close.
I mean, you could hear Bono, his race engineer.
Yeah.
Like, that's one of the most calm people in F1.
Yeah.
Like, you never hear him go crazy. There was about 5 seconds left. He's telling you gotta go now. Go now.
Like,
he was
go,
panicking.
go.
Absolutely panicking. Hamilton crosses the line with about half a second left. And manages to get through, but like I said, on soft tyres. And Hamilton ended up getting pole, but the soft tyres, I mean, we don't actually know how it would have happened, because before the race, Hamilton did not 1, but 2 illegal race starts.
Yeah.
Well, they weren't, it's not like illegal by the rules. It was what the steward said before the race. It was basically like, if you want to do a practice start, you do it here. And Hamilton got 2 5-second penalties for this.
Yeah.
Which gave him a 10-second penalty, and he ended up serving that in the pit lane. So Hamilton ended up going down to about, he came out in 11th, which actually wasn't bad, because he stayed out for a few more laps. Like, Mercedes wanted to bring him in, but Hamilton was like, no, don't bring me in yet. And that was absolutely huge, because he ended up coming out ahead of the Renaults and a few more cars that he was fighting. And it meant he could get up back into the podium places. But yeah, Hamilton was not going to win this race after that 10-second penalty. And like I said, I don't think he would have won the race anyway, because the medium is such a better race tyre to be on. And I think by the end of the pit stops, Bottas would have either come out ahead of Hamilton because the soft tyres go off very quickly and Bottas is on medium, so his tyres would be absolutely fine. And Hamilton would come out on the hard tyres, which would be cold and have absolutely no pace compared to the mediums. So Bottas either would have come out ahead of Hamilton or easily went past him at the end of the race because of the fresher tyres. But nonetheless, we didn't actually get to see that. But I mean, we kind of did because Hamilton got up into third, but he just didn't have any pace to catch Verstappen or Bottas. And Bottas actually won the race very easily, which he needed. And hopefully this will give Bottas some confidence to push on. And give Hamilton a fight.
Yeah, because it's as much as we like Hamilton to win, we also like to see a challenge.
Yeah, because no one's going to challenge Mercedes. We don't expect that. We know that at this point. Verstappen can maybe get up there sometimes, but he's never going to win. Not unless we have another Silverstone. Where Mercedes tyres explode, but yeah, it's Mercedes versus Mercedes to win it, and we want Bottas to be in that fight. So it would at least give us something, even though we know Mercedes is going to win, at least we would have a fight, rather than just going into the race expecting Hamilton to win every time. So we had a virtual safety car come out in the middle of the race because Grosjean broke some of the polystyrene barriers, and we saw this quite a lot, because there was this sausage curbs going into one of the turns, and if you were on the left side of them sausage curbs, you have to go to the runoff. A couple people, including Ricardo, got 5-second time penalties for not following that. Sainz paid the price for it at the start of the race when he went straight into the wall trying to follow the runoff track, because it's a very tight place to go, and the angle he came in at it, he was never going to make it, and he just ended up smashing his tyre off. Yeah, the virtual safety car came out for that, but it came out for about 20 seconds, if that. It came out and then went straight back because the stewards just had to come and put some new polystyrene barriers down. So Gasly pit, thinking it would last longer, and he got absolutely ruined in the pit stops by that. But luckily for him, he actually managed to get back up because we had Albon, Gasly and Norris having a great battle for 9th position. Norris was defending very well, but he just had no grip on the hard tyres, and he ended up locking up and letting Albon pass. Gasly getting past Albon. Albon's just disappointing in the Red Bull. I mean, I don't blame him because we saw Gasly do the exact same thing last year, and we know that car is set up for Verstappen, and Verstappen's driving style is not one that many can handle. That car just is very hard to control. So I don't think it's Albon's fault. But the fact that the AlphaTauri is outperforming that second Red Bull car is a problem, and Red Bull need to sort it, because if that second Red Bull car was consistently up there with Verstappen helping him out against Mercedes, maybe he'd have a chance. Rather than being in a 2-on-1 battle every time. Yeah, it's just disappointing to see Albon having to fight through the pack every race. Because every race he's fighting from about 16th place, trying to get up into the points. And it's just,
he's a decent driver.
It's not where he should be at all. Speaking of Gasly, the talks of maybe putting him back in the Red Bull seat, which I am against, because we saw how much he struggled in the Red Bull seat and how good he's been in the AlphaTauri. And, I mean, I, for one, would like to maybe see him move away from Red Bull. Maybe like to see Gasly move on from Red Bull and maybe go to another midfield team and show how good he really is.
Exactly.
Because obviously AlphaTauri's not really got any future for him, because Red Bull are never going to let him be better.
No.
They aren't their B team. Even though they're their own separate team, Red Bull are not going to let them be better than them.
No.
They're for their junior drivers.
Yeah.
So yeah, it would be very good for, because Gasly's a great driver. He's been probably driver of the year this year. For what he's been through with Red Bull and getting dropped halfway through the season to come back and win his first race, it would definitely be good to see him move on. Hamilton actually got 2 penalty points on his licence for the incidents, which would have put him 2 points away from a race ban. However, the stewards did retract these points off of his licence and blamed it on Mercedes for making him do the starts in the wrong place. and gave Mercedes a fine, which is very lucky for Hamilton because
he's very lucky.
He's been picking up some penalties this
Yeah.
year, which is not really what we used to.
No.
And yeah, Albon also got a 5-second penalty for not following the stewards' runoff area, but that didn't affect his position, just like Ricciardo. Yeah, we've had some pretty good races. It's been very good, especially coming off Spain and Belgium.
Yeah, it's been quite eventful.
Yeah, which is extremely good. Going on to some more F1 news now. We've got a new team coming in.
Yeah.
Well, not a new team, but Renault is rebranding as Alpine F1 team, which is going to be interesting. But yeah, so Renault aren't leaving, but they're just going to be racing under a new name and new colours.
Yeah.
And some more big news, which also involves a newish team, because Racing Point are rebranding once again. Sergio Perez announced that he is leaving Racing Point at the end of this season, and immediately after that we hear Sebastian Vettel is not leaving F1. He is going to be making the switch to Racing Point, which will be rebranded as Aston Martin for the 2021 season.
Yeah.
And that is absolutely great for F1, that Vettel is staying in the sport. It would be a big shame to have lost him.
Yeah.
So it's definitely great to see him stay, and it'll be exciting to see some new team names in for the next season.
More for you to remember.
Yeah, that's going to be great when I call Alpine, Renault and Aston Martin Racing Point, or maybe even Force India.
Okay, so now we're going to go on to Speedway, and again, it's been quite eventful. We've had like 4 Grand Prix. We're in the playoffs of the Extra League now. We've got quite a lot to talk about. So first off, we'll start with the Extra League, and we're getting to the end of the season now. And in the playoffs, we had Roxlav, Gorjov, Salona Gora, and Lezhno. Roxlav versus Gorjov in semi-final 1 was 46-44, which is really close, and when we're recording this, they've still not done semi-final 2, so we'll have to wait who's going to be in the final. But Salona Gora versus Lezhno was 44-46 in semi-final 1, but semi-final 2 was actually 57-33. So Lezhno were through to the final, which isn't really a surprise to me. They've been great all season. Now, Torren, who were relegated last year, which was a big surprise, they have been promoted back into the Extra League for 2021 after they beat Tarno 64-26. Yeah, they have been a stand-up team this year, with Jack and Chris Holder staying with them as they got relegated, and they've earned their way back into the Extra League. Now we're going to go on to the British final, which took place last night when we're recording this. Originally, it was going to be held at Ipswich, but it was actually held in Bellevue, and it was pushed back a few days because of the weather. I mean, it's not really a surprise because it's getting late in the season now, so we're going to get the bad weather.
And it's England.
Yeah, exactly. The weather wasn't great. The racing still went on, and the new British champion is an Australian rider, Rory Schlein. Second was Richard Lawson. Third was Australian rider and 3-time world champion Jason Crump. And fourth was Stevie Worrell. Now, some fans are not happy because 2 Australian riders were on the podium, and it's supposed to be a meeting that is the best British rider. I mean, Australia and Team GB are completely different in Speedway. They don't link up at all. They are completely different. But, you know, in my opinion, a lot of Brits weren't taking part anyway, like Craig Cook, Scott Nichols, Charles Wright. So, you know, I'm not keen that the fact that an Australian rider can be the best British rider, but at the end of the day, we got racing in the UK in this crazy year. That's a positive. But if Cardiff was going ahead and it was going to be an Australian rider to be the wild card for the British Grand Prix, I wouldn't be happy. So now, unfortunately, Speedway Nations was set to take place at Bellevue this year, but is now taking place in Europe due to COVID-19. I'm not really surprised. They've been racing in Europe throughout the lockdown, taking measures. They've got everything sorted over there, and we've not really had much racing over here, so it kind of makes sense. Now we're going on to the Grand Prix, and we have to start with the tyres. We've talked about this in the previous podcast where there was this big debate over which tyres are better and if these new tyres had a big difference. Well, the FIM have now banned the endless tyres for the rest of the year after doing multiple tests on them. Endless have said that they will try and provide a tyre which can be used in future GPs, which coincides with the regulations. So hopefully we can get them back because, I mean, in my opinion, I didn't think that the riders that were on these tyres were crazy above everyone else anyway.
There's no way just the tyre can make that big of a difference.
No, I mean, we've seen in the Grand Prix that the riders that were on the tyres have not been doing as well since, but I personally think it's in their heads. They've been, for example, Artem Laguta, some races he's amazing, and before he even had these endless tyres, he's been doing great this season, so I think it's in his head. So since the last podcast, we've had the 2 Gorzow Grand Prix and the 2 Prague Grand Prix. Anders Thompson was the wild card for Gorzow, and Vaclav Milik was the wild card for Prague. Gorzow started with a bad crash with Dudek and Thompson. I mean, it was nasty. It was typical first bend bunching, what you always get a lot in Speedway, but after Dudek clipped Emil's back wheel, he went over the handlebars. It kind of looked like he got stuck on the handlebars and he couldn't separate from the bike, and that never ends well. Thompson ended up running out of room in the whole bunching and the bike threw him off the back. All 4 riders were back in the race and Dudek actually won the rerun, but later on in the night he pulled out of the meeting. It must have been adrenaline that got him through the rerun, but he could barely ride the bike. So he ended up pulling out, but he did take place in the second Gorzow meeting the next night. In the final of the Gorzow meeting, we had Bartosz Zmarzlik who won. Jason Doyle came second, which was great to see because he's had a terrible start to the season in the Grand Prix. But this meeting seemed to be the point where he really turned it around. So then we had Lindgren in third and Madsen was in fourth in the final. Doyle somewhere had found some speed and was battling Zmarzlik the whole way round. I mean, up to this point, Zmarzlik was unbeaten apart from in Heat 19 where Woofy beat him. So it was great to see such a good race, especially with Doyle, who's not quite had the setup or something right so far this year. And then in the second Gorzow Grand Prix, Lindgren won it, Madsen second, Doyle third, and Emil fourth. It was a crazy race. Doyle made a great start, but Lindgren cut up the inside to take the win, and Madsen and Doyle were battling for second the whole way round. Now, these two are teammates in the Extra League. They both ride for Chesachova, and they weren't going to give each other a point. So there was a lot of tight moves. I mean, in the final bend, Madsen took Doyle right out to the fence and took second, and Doyle was not happy at all. It looked very awkward when they were on the podium. Like, they weren't talking to each other. Normally they're all smiling and stuff like that, but literally they were just stood, like, just not looking at each other. Madsen later put out a statement and he said that it was just GP racing, it's going to be tough. But he said that he also hit some ruts on that last bend, which took his bike out and resulted in Doyle going into the fence. And apparently there was no hard feelings, which is good. Now we're going to go on to Prague. This meeting was the meeting where all the riders wanted to get a warning. Literally half of the riders in this meeting got a warning from jumping the start, and I think it's down to the fact that it's typically a track where good gators tend to go and win the race. It's not really a great passing track. It's not a track where you can miss the gate and then still easily win it. It's the good gators always have the advantage. So by Heat 4, 6 riders were on a warning. I mean, that's a lot. You don't get 6 riders throughout the whole meeting on a warning. I mean, you normally get 1 or 2, but 6 by Heat 4 was ridiculous. So in the final, Bartosz won it, and it took him to the top of the standings. Woofy came second, Martin Vashalik third, and Emil was fourth. Doyle did set a new track record and he knocked about half a second off the previous one, but he didn't make the final after an eventful semi-final 2. In semi-final 2, it was Bartosz, Woofy, Doyle and Madsen, and it would have been a brilliant race, but both Madsen and Doyle blew it. They were both excluded for jumping the start, which meant Woofy and Bartos were the only two left in the race. And obviously the winner and the rider that comes second in the semi goes through to the final. So they were pretty much already in the final. But it was still a great race between the two. We've seen it a lot this season where those two just crazy battles. But yeah, so Doyle and Madsen did not make the final. Then we go on to the second meeting in Prague, and it was much better than the first. A lot of people weren't happy with the racing in the first meeting. They said it wasn't very great, but I mean, that's what we expect from Prague. But the second round in Prague was a lot better, and in the final we had Lindgren, Bartos, Woofy and Doyle. It started with a very nasty crash in the final between Woofy and Doyle. They collided in the first bend, and it looked like Doyle's front tyre got caught on Woofy's footrest, and after the bikes separated, Doyle's front tyre spokes literally just crumbled, and his whole bike fell apart like beneath him, and it threw him over the handlebars. Somehow both riders managed to walk away, and when they went to the pits they were both smiling, but it did look like they were both in a lot of pain. Doyle looked very sore. In fact, at the end when he was on the podium, Bartos had to give him his trophy because he couldn't even get off the podium to grab it. Then Woofy, obviously his hand was a bit sore. He's had a bit of trouble with his hand already this season, but all four were back in the race and at the tapes, and Doyle moves at the start. He was very lucky not to touch the tapes, and he was only given a warning. But finally, in the race, Woofy leads the whole way round with Bartos chasing and literally hanging off the bike trying to get past. And then in the last bend, Woofy just drifts off that racing line and allows Bartos through. Tries to do the cutback, back up the inside, but he don't have enough time, and he gets second, and Bartos takes the win. Doyle third and Lindgren fourth. This weekend, we are into the final two rounds of the Grand Prix, and we're at Torren, which is always amazing racing. We've got Jack Holder is the wild card. He's had a great season for Torren, so that'll bring some exciting racing from him, hopefully. And it should be good, but by the next podcast, we're going to know who the 2020 World Champion is. And that is it for Speedway.
Okay, we're going to move on to a little bit of news from snooker, as former 7-time world champion Stephen Hendry has been given an invitational tour card to play for the next 2 seasons.
Oh.
He previously retired in 2012, but is coming back for a little bit, so that'll be interesting to see how well he can do.
Yeah.
And now we're going to move into football. I'm going to start with some of the transfers that happened. There are a lot since we last did the podcast.
Yeah.
We're going to start off with Barcelona as the dismantling of their shocking team continues. Rakitic has gone back to Sevilla, where he previously joined Barcelona from. Nelson Semedo, the right back, has gone to Wolves, which is really good for Wolves actually, because they are definitely struggling with wing backs after losing Matt Doherty, and they've also lost Johnny Otto to an injury, and Adama Traore has looked kind of out of place at that wing-back position, so it'll be good to get some actual defenders in there and put the finishing touches to their squad, which has started off pretty all right this season. Luis Suarez, who was basically being forced out of Barcelona ever since the Champions League balls up, he has gone to Atletico Madrid, and Arturo Vidal has moved from Barcelona to Inter Milan. Sticking with Wolves, they have also signed Fabio Silva from Porto, adding to their already Portuguese national team-looking squad. We know they like their Portuguese players, and they also like their Portuguese-speaking players, as they signed experienced Brazilian left-back Marçal from Lyon. Going on to Arsenal, they signed Lille defender Gabriel, who has looked great for them in their opening few matches. He even scored on his debut against Fulham. Dani Ceballos has returned to Arsenal on loan from Real Madrid. He was one of their best players last season. And runner Alex Runnison has joined Arsenal from French club Dijon. He is a goalkeeper and has probably been brought in to replace backup Emi Martinez, who has moved to Aston Villa after he surprised quite a lot of people with his performances when Leno was injured. Leicester have signed Timothy Castagna the Belgian wingback, and he has been one of their best players since coming in. And in their first 3 games, he has at least a goal or an assist in all of them. Leicester have also signed a winger called Cheng is Under. That's completely butchered, but he's a Turkish winger on loan from Roma. Everton have added to their team, signing Watford midfielder Decore and James Rodriguez from Real Madrid, and they look like a completely different team to last year's team that started off in the relegation zone. Carlo Ancelotti has come in with a big reputation and has completely changed the team, and they look like they're going to be a real force this season, starting out 3 wins from 3. Matty Cash has joined Aston Villa from Nottingham Forest. Aston Villa have made quite a few signings looking to add on to their team that just barely survived relegation last year. They have brought in Championship Player of the Season from last year, Ollie Watkins from Brentford. And like I said before, they've brought in Emi Martinez, the Arsenal goalkeeper, to be their number 1 after Pepe Reina went back to Italy after his loan spell. The former Bournemouth duo Ryan Fraser and Callum Wilson have joined Newcastle, who have actually had a pretty decent transfer window, also signing Jeff Hendrick, adding to their pretty good squad. Batshuayi has gone on loan to Crystal Palace once again. He was on loan at them a few seasons ago, I believe, from Chelsea, but he still can't get into the team. Speaking with Chelsea, they've signed Edouard Mendy from Stade Rennes from France in a hope to end their goalkeeping struggles. 5 years ago, he was unemployed and ready to quit football. And now he is just secured a massive move to Chelsea, one of the best teams in the Premier League.
Wow.
So that is a massive turnaround for him. Sheffield United have signed a few players, Jayden Bogle and Max Lowe from Derby, as well as Ethan Ampadu on loan from Chelsea. Sheffield United have struggled so far this season with 3 losses from 3, definitely not keeping up their form from last season where they finished upper mid-table.
Yeah, they were pretty decent last season.
Grady Diangana has joined West Brom from West Ham, which has apparently angered their captain Mark Noble. He clearly didn't want them to sell him. He was on loan with West Brom last season in the Championship. Probably one of the biggest stories from the transfer window is Gareth Bale returning to Tottenham on a season-long loan from Real Madrid.
Yeah.
I'm not sure how good it's going to be. Bale's obviously a good player. He's been very much out of favour with Real Madrid, but, you know, he's not exactly a bad player to bring in, and we'll see if he can actually settle into the Tottenham squad, and if he can, that'll be great for him, but I'm unsure at the moment.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of stuff about people saying that he's like the signing of the season and stuff like that, and that he's going to turn around Tottenham's whole thing, but I mean, it's a lot of pressure to put on one guy.
I'm not sure if he's going to be that good, but like I said, we're just going to have to wait and see, because I'm unsure at this point. Tottenham have also signed Sergio Reguilon from Real Madrid. Now, definitely the biggest transfer from the window, and in my opinion, easily the best transfer, is Thiago Alcantara from Bayern Munich to Liverpool. And why is this the best transfer? Because he's one of the best midfielders in the world, and they signed him for 25 million. And in today's transfer market, that is an absolute steal.
Yeah.
And considering they signed Diogo Jota from Wolves for almost double that at 40 million, it is an absolute steal. And talking about Jota, that is another very good signing for Liverpool, who left it late, but have probably had one of the best transfer windows still. One for the MLS newbies Inter Miami. They have signed their second high-profile signing in Gonzalo Higuain from Juventus. They signed Blaise Matuidi at the start of the season as well. So them two going off to the MLS to end their careers, as that's usually what happens. Now on to some news about transfers. We obviously had Messi changing his mind about leaving Barcelona, though it wasn't really his fault. Like we said before, his release clause is huge, about £700 million or something ridiculous like that. And with all the coronavirus financial losses, it's just not possible. And Messi actually gave a statement saying basically the reason he's going to continue at the club is because that's the only way he can leave. Because he was basically told by the Barcelona president that the only way to leave is for someone to pay the £700 million release clause, which is impossible.
Yeah.
So basically Messi's going to stay until his contract runs out and then he's going to move somewhere for free. So that'll be interesting to see where that story takes us. Another interesting story is apparently Mbappe has told PSG that he wants to leave at the end of the season. One of the best players in the world, and he's only about 20 years old. And he is targeting La Liga or the Premier League to come to, but he's going to be another very expensive player. He moved to PSG for about 200 million, so they're not exactly going to want to take any losses on him.
No.
Good news for Aston Villa fans. Jack Grealish has signed a new 5-year contract.
Yeah.
With them after talks that he was going to leave.
Yeah, I'm quite surprised about that. I was convinced that he was going to go to another club.
He's easily their best player.
Yeah.
So that is absolutely great for them. And
yeah, they need him.
big news for Arsenal fans is we didn't know if Aubameyang was going to stay, but he has confirmed that he has signed a new 3-year contract with Arsenal. So clearly Mikel Arteta has convinced him. Not surprised, 2 trophies at the end of last season and the start of this season. They've also started the Premier League very well, although they did slip up last night to Liverpool. But there's no surprise there. I mean, the turnaround and the trophies, why would you not want to stay? And Aubameyang's easily their best player.
Yeah.
So that is very good for them. Going into the Premier League, Leeds are an interesting talking point as they currently sit in about 6th or 7th place, I believe, 3 games in. Their first game, they lost to Liverpool 4-3. They were very unlucky in that game. They ended up giving away 2 penalties in the end. Yeah. But they put up a massive fight. And actually, in their other win, they beat Fulham 4-3 as well.
Yeah, apparently it's like 4-3.
Clearly they like a lot of goals, which is not a surprise considering the amount of goals we've actually seen in the Premier League to the start of this year, which is absolutely crazy. But yeah, Leeds look good offensively, but looks like they may need to learn how to defend pretty quickly. Yeah. And interestingly for them, their new record signing, Rodrigo, was the one that gave away the penalty after a ridiculous tackle on Fabinho. And that gave Salah his hat-trick and all their hard work went down the drain. And moving on to Wolves, I thought they would struggle this season. I wouldn't say they've set the world on fire, but they lost to Man City, but they did beat Sheffield United, who are struggling, so I'm not really sure how much you can look into that. No. But like I said, Traore, he's struggling out of position at right wing-back, and he just looks out of the game. He's one of their best players. He's great on the ball, but playing him at right-back, he's not very good defensively, and he just looks completely out of the game, so it'll be good for them to get some wing-backs in and solidify that team. An interesting story with Man United is whether Dean Henderson would actually stay. And he has actually ended up staying, but he is not their number 1 goalkeeper.
No.
Which is absolutely shocking for Dean Henderson, and it's just a shame that potentially England's best goalkeeper is the backup at Manchester United, just playing cup games against League One teams. Yeah. I think he needs to leave Manchester United, or Man United need to start playing him, because I think he can be a better goalkeeper than De Gea. Yeah. And De Gea hasn't really shown that he deserves to keep his place recently. But speaking of the Manchester teams, they started a week later due to games being rescheduled to a later date, probably due to COVID. Yeah. Yeah, Man United in their first game against Crystal Palace looked very sluggish. They ended up losing the game 3-1, but Crystal Palace completely played them off the pitch. Yeah. The Man United were absolutely nowhere. And even in their game against Brighton, where they won with a not even last-minute penalty, Bruno Fernandes took the penalty after the final whistle.
Can you do that?
Yeah, VAR. But yeah, it was like it was a 100th minute penalty. It was 10th minute of extra time, or added time. But in the Crystal Palace game, they had a very harsh penalty given against them for a handball. And it was very harsh, but like I said when it happened, Man United aren't the ones to be complaining about penalties
no, they
ever.
can't.
They are not allowed to complain about
No.
penalties given against them anymore, considering how many they get.
Yeah, they're not allowed.
Yeah, Zaha, former Manchester United player, didn't really work out for Manchester United, went back to Crystal Palace and he absolutely destroyed Manchester United. Man United's defence is just slow. Like Maguire and Lindelof, they just got no pace between them and they get run off the pitch. And you just see every time Crystal Palace got the ball, they just played it over the top and outrun Man United.
Yeah.
Like Man United need some speed back there, or they are going to not really get anywhere. Van der Beek, their big signing of the transfer window, scored on his debut and with a scrappy goal in the box. But good to see him get off to a good start. Again, Sheffield United's struggles continued against Aston Villa, and it didn't really help that Egan got sent off for a terrible foul. He just held Watkins, who was through on goal, and you're obviously going to get sent off. And you know, I get why he did it to stop a goal, but would you rather be a goal down or a man down?
Exactly. Oh.
I think you would take a goal down every day of the week, because
Yeah.
at least you have a chance.
I mean, as soon as you get someone sent off, it just kills all your momentum.
Yeah, Man City have probably had the most up and down season to start. They absolutely dominated Wolves, and they've actually started playing a different formation this year with Guardiola probably not trusting his defenders very much. They're playing Rodri and Fernandinho together in midfield, them two more defensive-minded midfielders, pushing De Bruyne on a little bit higher up the pitch, and it worked out against Wolves. They absolutely played brilliantly, but in the second game against Leicester,
Didn't work out so well.
yeah.
That is.
You can play all the defensive players you want, but if none of them are any good, they gave away 3 penalties in that game, and they were all carbon copies of each other.
Yeah, they were.
It was like I watched the same foul 3 times in a row by
Yeah.
different Man City players.
What were they doing?
It's just the Leicester player gets goal side and they just take him out.
Yeah.
And you're never going to win a game giving up 3 penalties. Jamie Vardy got a hat-trick in that game, and I didn't expect Man City to be conceding 5 goals. I expected that result to be the other way round, if anything. But yeah, Leicester have started off very well. I'm not surprised about that. I mean, they didn't lose that many players. They lost Ben Chilwell to Chelsea.
Yeah, but we've got a good replacement.
Yeah, but Leicester haven't even been playing their full team.
No.
Maddison's been injured. Ricardo obviously had the injury at the end of last season and through to this season. And Ndidi has been out this season now. They're not even playing their full-strength team, and they're beating Man City 5-2. That is a dangerous prospect, especially considering how well they were before the little collapse at the end of last season. If they can get that in check, I expect them to be in the Champions League, and no one else can say otherwise.
No.
Because they keep proving it.
I mean, if that goal from Maddison, oh my God, what a goal.
Chelsea are another talking point for this season as the disappointment continues. There's been a lot of new signings, and it's hard to know what to expect when you've got a lot of new players, especially a lot of new players that have not had any experience in this league.
Yeah.
It's going to take time. And, I mean, most of the new defenders aren't even playing. Chelsea is still putting out the lineups that destroyed them last season. The poor defending has continued. And actually, Thiago Silva was the guy that gave up one of the goals due to a defensive mistake.
Oh.
He was brought in as the experienced centre-back to help these young centre-backs come in, and he's the one that goes and gives up the defensive error for the goal. So maybe Chelsea are just known for this now, which is very disappointing. Hopefully not the case, but it's seeming like this ain't going away anytime soon.
It's going to be a new slogan.
Yeah, it doesn't matter if you play Kepa in goal or Caballero in goal, it's the same problems. Neither of them are any good. Neither of them can stop shots going in the back of the net. Chelsea went 3-0 down to West Brom, a team that barely made it through. I mean, if it wasn't for Brentford's collapse last year, they may not even be in the Premier League.
Yeah.
Because if Brentford don't collapse at the end of last season and get into the automatic promotion spots, West Brom go into the playoffs out of form.
Yeah.
And you don't want to be in a playoff fight out of form.
No.
But they ended up getting through automatically. And yeah, Chelsea went 3-0 down. They ended up pulling it back to 3-3, which, I mean, it's great that they pulled it back, but you can't really be happy with that. That performance was shocking. And Chelsea had loads of chances after they went 1-0 down to make it 1-1 or 2-1. They didn't take them, and then more defensive mistake. And I believe this was actually the first draw of the new Premier League season.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was.
And it was a 3-3 draw. That is how crazy this season's been. And we've got a little story from the French league, as Marseille and PSG, you know, they have a heated rivalry over there. And this was a game that saw 5 red cards.
5?
And a racism claim. The Marseille manager, Andre Villas-Boas, has defended his player, Alvaro Gonzalez, following the racism claim from Neymar. There's still nothing to come out of the investigation that Liga are taking into it. But Neymar was sent off for striking Gonzalez. So obviously he said something that didn't go down well. 5 red cards.
5? I mean, that's got to be a record.
Yeah, that absolutely crazy. Okay, now we're going to move on to Major League Baseball. And the season is done.
Yeah.
60 games come and gone very quickly, it feels like, and we are moving forward into the postseason. Now, the postseason is a little bit different this year, as we have each league's division winners and the division's second-place teams. So there's 3 divisions from each league, which means 6 teams get through, and then they also have 2 wild card teams, which are the best records outside of them positions, making a 16-team playoff bracket. And that has led to some controversy, as the Houston Astros and Milwaukee Brewers both made the playoffs with a below 500 record.
Really?
Which is absolutely insane to me. It's like they're in the Eastern Conference in the NBA. But yeah, that is absolutely crazy. So it gives them a chance. I mean, being under 500, you shouldn't be anywhere near the playoffs.
No.
But now they have a chance to even go on and win it. Wow. Imagine that.
That would be controversial.
DJ LeMahieu for the Yankees has become the first player in the modern era to win the batting title in both the AL and NL. He won it with the Colorado Rockies in the NL and has won it this year with the Yankees. Shane Bieber became the fastest pitcher to reach 1,000 1,000 strikeouts? Jesus. 100 strikeouts.
Say 1,000.
Yeah, he's reached that faster than anyone before him. Him and Trevor Bauer have had insane seasons, both under a 2 ERA, both under a 0.8 or 0.9 whip, I believe.
Wow. And
Dallas Keuchel for the White Sox has also returned to his Cy Young form that he reached with the Astros a few years ago. So we're going to have some interesting playoff battles. Juan Soto actually had a very good year, leading a lot of offensive categories, but unfortunately for the Nationals, they could not hit any kind of form this year.
It's that second year, isn't it? Like, it happens so much in sport. You do well one year and you just know well the next.
Yeah. Speaking to the playoff games, we start off with the wild card series. We have the Astros versus the Twins, the White Sox versus the A's, the Blue Jays against the Rays, and the Yankees against the Indians in the AL. In the NL, we go to the Reds and the Braves, Marlins versus Cubs, Cardinals versus Padres, and Brewers versus Dodgers.
Are the Dodgers going to blow it again?
They've been easily the best team during the regular season, which we've seen quite a few times, and they've definitely got something to prove in the postseason because they have not lived up to their expectations. Despite making a couple of World Series, they've not lived up to expectations at all. We had an interesting Wednesday, the 9th of September, as the Braves decided to go and break the National League record for runs scored. They went and beat the Marlins 29-9.
Oh, wow.
They scored 29 runs on 23 hits. 11 of those runs came in the second inning. Yeah. That was absolutely ridiculous. And on the same day, the Brewers went and beat the Tigers 19-0. I don't know what was going on this day. But everyone was scoring massive, and we've had quite a few games this year where there's just been massive amounts of runs scored.
Yeah.
During the 29 runs scored, Duval had 9 RBIs in that game, and Freddie Freeman had 6 RBIs.
Wow.
That's in one game.
That's a lot.
9 RBIs. That's crazy. And Tampa Bay started a game this year with all batters being left-handed.
Really?
This was the first time that had been done since at least 1901.
Wow. Well, I mean, I didn't even know there was that many left-handed batters.
Yeah, the whole team was built up of left-handed batters.
Wow.
So a nice bit of history there. The NFL season is now started.
Yeah.
We're a few games in already. Cam Newton was named the starting quarterback for the Patriots officially, and he hasn't done too badly, leading them to a 2-1 record to start off. Leonard Fournette, who was released from the Jacksonville Jaguars, has joined the already stacked Buccaneers offense, though they have struggled early on in this year. I think it's just going to take them a few games to get into it, because obviously they haven't had a lot of time together as a team, and it's going to take them a little bit to gel. But when they do gel, it's going to be a problem for the rest of the NFC. The Chiefs look as ridiculous as expected. It doesn't matter what the down is. I mean, last night against the Ravens, they were 3rd and 14, and Patrick Mahomes just lobs one over the defense and touchdown. Because no one can keep up with their receivers. Mecole Hardman just outrun everyone to the end zone. And they've shown the ability to score whenever they want.
Yeah.
Including against the #1 scoring defense of the Baltimore Ravens, in which they scored 34 points against. And Mahomes has become the fastest player to reach 10,000 passing yards. We've got a lot of Patrick Mahomes left, and I think by the way he's going, by the end of his career, he's going to be easily the greatest quarterback we've ever seen.
Yeah, he's a crazy player.
He picked apart the best defense in the NFL like it was nothing.
Yeah.
He looked like he was taking a stroll around the park.
Start for a little jog.
It was so easy for him. It didn't matter what the Baltimore defense did. They blitzed him, they ran different looks, man coverage, zone coverage. He picked everything apart and made it look easy. The Bills, Steelers, Titans, Chiefs, Packers, Bears and Seahawks remain the undefeated teams through 3 games. The Texans are shockingly 0-3, which I didn't expect at all. The NFC West currently looks hard to call, but the 49ers have unfortunately lost about every top player on their team, including their quarterback and their tight end. The NFC East currently doesn't have a team over 500. That includes the Washington football team, with their interesting name, the Eagles, Giants and Cowboys. It's obviously still early, so it's all to play for.
Yeah.
There has been so many big injuries. I mean, the list is absolutely ridiculous. It's like listing an all-star team.
Oh, God.
It's like listing the all-pro team. Michael Thomas, probably the best wide receiver in football, injured. Von Miller, one of the best pass-rushing linebackers in the NFL, injured. Christian McCaffrey and Saquon Barkley, 2 of the best running backs in football, injured. And Barkley's out for the season with an ACL injury.
Oh.
McCaffrey should be back in 4 to 6 weeks, so he's still going to miss a massive chunk of games. Jimmy Garoppolo led the 49ers to a Super Bowl last year, injured. And Le'Veon Bell, he's not been the greatest for the Jets, but had some great years with the Steelers. He's injured too. And like I said, the list just goes on.
Wow.
We are losing so many great players
And
this
it's still
year.
very early.
So somehow 2020 gets even worse. Now we're going to move into the NBA. The NBA Finals is starting on Wednesday, the 30th of September, so tomorrow actually.
Yeah.
So that'll be interesting to see. So if you fancy staying up till 2 a.m. in the morning to watch the start of the game, you'll probably end up staying up till about 5 o'clock in the morning. If you want to watch the whole game, feel free. Luckily, uni hasn't started yet, so I may stay up and watch a couple. We've had some news in terms of coaches, as NBA legend Steve Nash has been announced as the Brooklyn Nets head coach, one of the best point guards in NBA history, a 2-time MVP and many-time assist leader. Yeah, well, it'd be interesting to see how he does. I'm not really sure where that's come from. He has no coaching experience ever, but with the type of player he was, he's the type of player you expect to be a pretty good coach.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, he's got a decent team to work with.
yeah, it'll be interesting to see. That team doesn't need a lot of coaching by the looks of it. Moving on to coaches, as the Oklahoma City Thunder went out of the playoffs, their coach Billy Donovan announced that he would not be getting his contract renewed, and they're going a different way. But luckily for Billy Donovan, he has got a new job quite quickly, as he has agreed to deal with the Chicago Bulls. That'll be interesting to see if he can turn around that struggling, rebuilding Bulls team.
Yeah.
I think this was against the Rockets, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong, but LeBron James had a 36 points, 7 rebounds, 5 assists, and 4 blocks in that game, and became the first Lakers player to do that, or to at least have 35 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists, and 4 blocks in a playoffs game since Shaquille O'Neal in May 2000. LeBron and Anthony Davis leading that Lakers team to an NBA Finals. They've got to hope that LeBron and Anthony Davis are on, because that Lakers team doesn't have a lot outside of that. They will be playing the Miami Heat in the NBA Finals. Miami Heat, a surprise package.
Yeah.
Not really expecting them to be in the NBA Finals, but they have outplayed everyone. Jimmy Butler leading the way, the new free agent signing. The Denver Nuggets made some history in their series against the Los Angeles Clippers, as they surprisingly beat them after coming down from 3-1. They came back from a pretty much dead position twice, as they became the first team to recover from that series deficit twice in the same playoffs.
Wow.
As they got past the Utah Jazz after being 3-1 down, they got past the Clippers after being 3-1 down. Jamal Murray has been going absolutely crazy, as we've mentioned before in the podcast, and he's still going crazy despite them getting knocked out by the Lakers. They did still put up a decent fight. All the games were pretty close, but the Lakers ended up moving forward 4-1. And the Celtics and Heat came off a great series, with the Heat coming back in the fourth quarter to win Game 6 of that finals. The Celtics pretty much gave a couple of them games away, which is unfortunate for them. Tyler Hero, the 20-year-old for the Heat, he scored a career-high 37 points as they went up 3-1 in that series. For a rookie, scoring 37 points in a playoffs game, that is crazy. He really was the hero.
Yeah.
Living up to his name. An interesting bit of regular season news is Bradley Beal for the Washington Wizards became the only NBA player ever to average 30 points and 6 assists and not make an All-NBA team.
Oh, really?
Yeah, 30 points and 6 assists. I don't know how he hasn't made an All-NBA team there. I mean, the Wizards didn't make the playoffs, but still.
Yeah, I mean, that's a nice record.
That's a very good stat line to not make. I can't believe that's happened.
Yeah.
He's been absolutely ruined by that. Got some news on the NBA draft, as it is scheduled for November 18th. So we'll be looking forward to that coming up in a few months. And an interesting bit of news, after CJ McCollum and the Blazers got knocked out of the playoffs, he has now become a wine connoisseur.
A wine connoisseur.
He is now a winemaker, and he's released his first wine. Yeah, I don't really know where that's come from.
That's a bit random.
But yeah, we'll be looking forward to the NBA Finals coming up soon.
Yeah.
And now we go into the balls up section.
Yes.
Should we start off with Speedway?
Sure, we've got quite a few in Speedway.
I've got more.
Yeah, but... So first off, this isn't really something we talk about too much on our podcast. It's not exactly based directly on the sport, but more the technical difficulties that go with it. And with Speedway this season, we have had a few, and it shouldn't happen. So the first one, I've mentioned this I think in the previous podcast, maybe even the podcast before that, but these camera shots are horrific in the Grand Prix. I mean, even the commentators are saying how bad they are. They're literally, like, we don't want to see a shot from the outside of the stadium from a drone while in the middle of a race, because you can't even see what's going on. It's like, we also don't want to see the rider who's like a mile at the back when there's a battle going on for first and second. And then we've also got some technical issues with Heat 14 in round 2 of Prague, where we missed half of the race because we were shown replays of the previous race. I mean, literally, the referee made it seem like they were asking to see replays from the previous race. And obviously, because the referee is watching the replay, the next race can't start because the ref needs full attention on the race. And so we were watching the replays that the referee had requested to see. We were talking about the replays, and then suddenly we cut back to the race and it's on lap 3, and we're like, what's going on here? So we missed half the race. So whatever happened there, they need to get it sorted, because wow, that's a big balls up. Also with Prague, the jump starts has got to be a balls up moment. I mean, Jason Crump messaged in to the commentators with a solution possibly, but it's something we need to sort out. As well as Prague, we've also got to talk about Vaclav Milik finishing 17th out of 16 riders. It is possible because...
Did you get minus points?
It's because in one or two of the races, we had the reserve come in, and they're not in for the whole meeting. They're only in if a rider can't take place in that, if like they touch the tapes or something.
And they scored more points than
yeah, a reserve scored more points than Vaclav Milik, who is an extra league rider, he's a pretty decent rider. He's ridden for Prague in the Grand Prix as a wild card a lot. So this reserve got more points than he did, and he finished 17th out of 16 in the standings. So now this is my favourite balls up moment. We're going to post the clip on social media so you can see it, because it was absolutely brilliant. After the final in Gorzów, where Bartosz Zmarzlik and Jason Doyle were shaking hands, congratulating each other for the race, like they do at the end of every race, their bikes got caught up. Bartosz fell off the bike and nearly took down Doyle with him. I mean, they got up, they were both fine, they were laughing about it, but it was absolutely brilliant. It was so funny. And it was even better for Bartosz that it was in front of his home fans at Gorzów. So we're going to post the clip on social media so you can see it and have a good laugh, because every time I see it, I can't stop laughing.
Right, some more balls up moments. We obviously had the ones from F1 where there was so many cars going off the track at Parabolica, and there was also the incident where they decided to race each other in qualifying. If you watch the Monza Grand Prix, you know exactly what I'm talking about. People were overtaking each other on their qualifying laps.
Yeah.
And that is something that you just don't want to be doing. You're just costing each other time. And it's because of the mess they make of the outlaps. They're all up next to each other, and they end up... like I said, they were racing in qualifying.
Yeah.
And we also had Hamilton and Giovinazzi pitting when the pit lane was closed. Major balls up moments for both of them.
Oh, yeah.
One thing I want to talk about is some of the Premier League kits.
Oh, don't get me started.
Seen a lot of them posted on social media. Some of the ones that are the pick of the bunch, the Manchester United zebra-looking kit. White with black stripes. We've got the Man City kit, which is like the salmon colour with the weird designs on it. I don't even know what they are.
And that cracked glass effect.
I don't mind the cracked glass effect. It's just weird that it doesn't cover the whole kit. It's like their shoulders and the back of their kit are not the same as the front of the kit. And then we also have the Chelsea kit, pink with the blue stripes that go about halfway down the front of the kit.
Hate it.
And they're on the shoulders as well. Like, the kit looks fine from the back, and then you turn to the front. It's like, why is the blue there? It looks very weird. There's just so many kits. I think Wolves have one too, their light blue kit, which looks like a summer dress. I don't know what the kit creators have been doing this year, but it's just like they've gone, yeah, why not?
Man City's kit, the one with the weird patterns on, literally reminds me of an adult colouring book.
Looks like some kid has drawn them pictures.
Oh, what were they thinking?
Moving on to the NFL, we had Bengals kicker Randy Bullock absolutely mess up his rookie quarterback, Joe Burrows marched down the field for a game-tying field goal against the Chargers, and he missed it.
Oh.
His rookie quarterback in his first NFL season marches the team down for a game-tying quarterback. He's done his job. He's happy with himself. Go out and kick the field goal. He missed it.
Oh.
More kickers. We have Steven Gostkowski, a reliable kicker for the New England Patriots for many years and many Super Bowls. He missed 4 kicks against the Broncos. He missed 4 kicks against the Broncos in one game in his struggling 2020 season, to say the least, for the Titans. However, he made up for it. He made the game winner in that game, but the amount of misses, he needed to make that game winner.
Yeah.
We had an interesting claim from Jose Mourinho in Tottenham's Europa League tie with the North Macedonian team. They checked the goals and they went to UEFA and claimed the goals were too small.
Oh, yeah.
And UEFA came out and checked them, and apparently they were 5 centimetres too small. I have never heard of that before.
No.
That was absolutely crazy. I can't believe the goals were literally too small, and I can't believe that they actually claimed that.
How did they notice? Like, because 5 centimetres, it's not that much, is it, really?
Apparently Jose Mourinho went up to the goals and thought he had grown a bit. Yeah, sticking with football, going on to the Serie A, Roma were handed a 3-0 loss at Hellas Verona despite drawing the game. They drew the game 0-0. They were given the 3-0 loss due to an administrative error in the matchday squad, which saw them list 23-year-old Diawara in their under-22 section rather than the 25-man squad list. And due to that, they had to forfeit the match. And they were given a 3-0 loss despite drawing 0-0.
Oh, that's harsh.
They massively balls that up.
Yeah.
Going on to a sport that we haven't really I don't think we've talked about it ever in this podcast. Not a lot. Tennis. Novak Djokovic
I think I know what you're going to say.
was thrown out of the US Open after hitting a line judge with the ball.
Yeah.
He didn't mean to, and he apologised to her afterwards, but I think the frustration got to him a little bit.
Yeah.
Whacked the ball, it hit the line judge, and he got thrown out of the tournament.
I did see that, and I did have a laugh.
Yeah.
Tough day in the office.
More bad news for the English men's football team. Phil Foden and Mason Greenwood were kicked out of the England squad for breaching quarantine guidelines in Iceland. That follows Harry Maguire's incident where he got removed from the squad. Going on to basketball, as during the NBA playoffs, the Houston Rockets were facing the Los Angeles Lakers, and one of their best players from that series, Daniel House, was removed from the bubble because he was found to have a guest in his hotel room for multiple hours, and they weren't supposed to be there. They weren't authorised to be there.
Wow.
I think his wife and kids will enjoy that one.
Oh.
And yeah, he would not return, and the Rockets ended up getting beaten by the Lakers.
Wow.
Yeah, and like I said, he was a key player for that team. We had the Celtics and the Raptors. The Raptors down by 3, 11 seconds remaining. Fred VanVleet has the ball for the Raptors. What does he do? He shoots, he airballs it. Celtics get the possession and win the game.
Oh.
Now,
Wow.
if you watch the final possession, it started with about 15 seconds left. VanVleet does some dribble moves, shoots, and fires up an air ball. It was probably the most diabolical possession I've ever seen in basketball. And this was in the NBA playoffs.
Wow.
3 points down with 11 seconds left, and he airballs it.
Wow.
I don't know what the hell they drew up, or what the hell VanVleet was thinking, but it was an absolute mess. Balls it up. They balls it up.
The only way to describe that is balls it up.
And this may be the most ridiculous of them all, and that's why I've left it till last. We go back to the NFL, and according to someone in the Chargers and to some very reliable NFL sources, to some journalists, apparently Chargers team doctor accidentally punctured his own quarterback's, Tyrod Taylor's, lung. He accidentally punctured his lung.
How does a doctor accidentally do that?
He was giving him a pain-killing injection for his cracked ribs and punctured his lung. And this ended up leading to rookie Justin Herbert getting some starting snaps earlier than he expected.
Yeah.
I can't believe that.
How do you accidentally do that?
I just can't believe it. It sounds ridiculous.
It does.
He punctured his own... The doctor punctured his lung. How? And that is where we're going to end this episode of the podcast. Thank you for listening.
Yep, you can check out our previous episodes on YouTube, Spotify and Mixcloud, and you can check out our social media, which is Instagram and Facebook, and that is at English Media Productions.